You're live,
Holy
JD.
moly, we're live. Welcome back. Another episode of Go Find Yourself. Today is Degen Wednesday, which is Kiara's favorite day. She even did her hair all fancy for Degen Day. Huh?
Crypto arms race is my favorite day by far.
No, every day is your favorite day. I'm just going to make up a new reason every day.
Oh, great. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I definitely did my hair. I definitely brushed it today.
I'm wearing a big cozy hoodie today because we're talking a lot about some cold places like Avalanche. And some of the exciting upgrades that they've done, and something that I struggle to understand a little bit, but we're going to talk about their angle on MemeCoins and culture and so on. We're going to talk a little bit about EOS and Everlodge's DeFi surge and why that's important. Uniswap going multi-chain with V2. Yeah, we're going to talk about some AI. What else we got?
Farcaster and NFTs.
And NFTs, my fave.
Yeah. Oh, this is all your favorite topics. MemeCoins, NFTs. What more could JD love?
This is my favorite day. Anyways, let's go. If you ever see a cup that says "Do not disturb," do you listen?
No, absolutely not.
Damn.
In fact, I'm going to harass you about it all day now.
I thought maybe it was going to work. I don't know.
Absolutely not.
All right. Avalanche.
Durango.
All I can think about when I hear the word Durango, do you remember back in the day? I don't even know if they still make them. Dodge Durangos.
All I was thinking of as well, yes.
That's all I can think about. It's ridiculous. It's like, I'm always like, why? Why would you name it after a car?
They didn't. My car is also named after a Durango, and now multiple things are named after a Durango, and we need to let our past go. All right. Well, Durango is an upgrade, and they have launched it on the testnet.
Fuji. This is like stinking exciting. So I don't know how much you know about it. Obviously, I have a slight bias. We've been involved with Avalanche for a long time and have multiple protocols live there and services. So I'm obviously biased, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt if you're a loyal viewer. That being said, I think this is another step towards what we've kind of been waiting for since the inception of Avalanche, which is the ability to very efficiently communicate between blockchains or subnets via Avalanche warp messaging. So Avalanche warp messaging, to a certain extent, was available previous to this, but this now adds a whole new dimension, I think, on how messages can be moved between subnets and what that does for composable deployments. That being said, it's still only on the test net. It's pretty exciting, in my opinion. It does some stuff for transactions and transfers on the P chain, which to most people means nothing, but it has to do with how liquid staking assets or staked assets are managed and moved around and different things. So all very, very exciting.
All the impact it's going to have on subnets will be really substantial, actually, because I think it's going to get rid of bridging across subnets, right? This will stand in its place. It'll be way more secure. You're not going to get rugged by like Googling how to bridge between subnet A and subnet B. It's just, I think it's going to really improve what Avalanche can do. If you're a builder.
Totally agree. And I think, one of the biggest limitations to like app chains or TradFi coming in has always been, okay, cool. They can have these closed ecosystems to maintain compliance, but what can you do with the assets? There's no way to get the assets from there and to do other things with them, which is a lot of the advantage of blockchain and composability. So this is a huge step. I think this will be a major catalyst to see a lot of these subnets and protocols that have been testing in the background starting to actually go to market and gain real proper users with real proper assets.
So
all in all, I think this is huge.
Go ahead. It's easy for us to talk about the utility of how this is going to work on subnets in terms of crypto. So I'm going to bridge an asset or I have this thing staked and I want to be able to spend it somewhere or what have you. But the other thing that is getting a small mention is that, of course, Avalanche serves a lot of institutions like Deloitte and JP Morgan, Citi. And that's where their file management is. That's what that kind of looks like. And I believe that this will also allow those technical subnets to do file sharing and other asset sharing that isn't just crypto, that isn't just tokens. I think this will be a really big move for Avalanche to be able to go more institutionally based.
Yeah, totally agree. They already have kind of pilot partnerships with the institutions you've mentioned and many more. T. Rowe Price, KKR. Like there's a bunch of them. Cumberland, Van Eck. Anyways, there's a lot of traditional entities and institutions that have been working with Avalanche for years already. Part of this upgrade, they were speaking about Onyx. JP Morgan and Goldman and Microsoft created a blockchain called Onyx. A lot of the portfolio automation and stuff is currently being done on, at least being tested on Avalanche using subnet technology. All of this cannot happen without AWM the way that they're about to deploy it. So it is really exciting. I think it's really going to open up a whole new paradigm of how institutions can communicate communicate with their products. To your point, this is cross-chain messaging, which doesn't necessarily mean that it involves tokens. It could be cross-chaining your collateral position somewhere. It could be just stating that you have one and giving certain permissions to users on other chains or all of these things. Really critically important, you could share KYC information, which is important from a compliance perspective. If you're Goldman and JP Morgan and you want to share users and protocols, you have to have a way to guarantee compliance. Anyways, all of that to say, this is a huge step. I don't see many other ecosystems, there's a few, as focused on institutional tooling. So it's very exciting. It's a big step in the right direction.
Okay, you say that, but then on the other side, Avalanche is starting to invest in MemeCoins, which is, I'm glad to see that they're taking strategic pivots where they need to go. But basically, the Avalanche Foundation has decided that if your MemeCoin meets the 3-page criteria that they've released, that they will 100% back you on Avalanche. And so part of this, I think, is trying to get some of the impact of what MemeCoins can do back on Avalanche instead of just on ETH or on other networks. But I think it's also maybe a weird monetary position, like a financial position, because they're planning to buy large allocations of MemeCoins if they meet the criteria that they've set up. And those criteria include things like being on Avalanche is a really big one, and having actually launched on Avalanche as opposed to having launched somewhere else and then getting minted on Avalanche later. But they also want the founders of those MemeCoins to kind of have taken a step back. So you're not allowed to be hoarding massive token allocations. You're not allowed to still be really running the project. So it's kind of these like free-for-all currencies that don't really have any onus or backing. Avalanche is going to take over.
So it's called this is part of a broader program called the Culture Catalyst program, which is, you could probably make an argument, not probably, you could for sure make an argument that one area that Avalanche was behind the pack, so to speak, was in the art, culture, and kind of NFT-esque space, as well as meme coins and kind of that degen culture. Avalanche didn't really get into that at first. And I think it actually did Avalanche a solid service in pursuing institutional traction, because they also at the same time weren't seen as, but now they're well established enough they can do both. When I first read this article, I was like, I actually thought it had to be satire, that because it actually says they're exclusively backing meme coins. And that, the idea being that they want to be the exclusive backer, the exclusive backer of meme coins, not that they're not supporting anything but meme coins. But that's what I read. And it took, actually, I talked to you about this. I still believe that after going through it until you said, no, just wait. And so I think if you see these articles, read them with a bit of a grain of salt. But I think this is definitely interesting. They're trying to attract some of these kind of guerrilla virality type things just to get some excitement. And, meme coins, although I'm a very outspoken critic of meme coins, they can do a lot for community development and sentiment and narrative and momentum. So we'll have to see how it goes. Our buddy at Degen Roundtable, as Ascending is saying, is this is how Avalanche might
take over the Solana meme share. I think that's a pretty pertinent point, dude.
It is a really salient point. I mean, so that's been in my opinion, again, I've been a fairly vocal critic of Solana in general.
What?
Yeah, who knew? But anyways, that is one thing that is undeniable. Solana had second only to ETH, and not second by far. Sometimes they actually surpass volumes, but Solana NFTs and culture was pretty much all that Solana survived on over the last little bit. And if you look at, the market cap and drawdown during the bear, it wasn't as bad as it should be given the still consistent outages of Solana and the still non-existent meaningful DeFi, not non-existent, but they've done some cool things with Jito and other things. They're getting a lot more interest back with respect to DeFi and other types of technologies. But yeah, exactly that. Solana and Avalanche kind of came onto the scene at the same time. So they've always been kind of compared to each other in terms of adoption and success. And so, yeah, I think if you look at your next closest competitor and see that they're taking really easy, froth off the market, why wouldn't you do that? So here we are. All right, we can move away from
You're done about Avalanche? I know you love Avalanche. We haven't actually talked about how the next Avalanche conference is in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, I know. I told my wife that she needs to get excited because we're going to Argentina.
That's pretty cool.
I think. if we get invited, I don't know.
Ooh.
But anyway, okay.
Moving on from Avalanche, because we'll stay here all day.
Yeah.
We can talk about Avalanche. So Avalanche has listed their token on Uniswap.
So, okay. This is something I struggle a little bit with this. I know. I struggle a little bit because this is an area that I think blockchain offers incredible potential, but we have yet to see something that sticks. And that is combining blockchain, tokens, and real estate. And I don't know a ton about Avalanche, but I do know that their focus is on reshaping how real estate is essentially purchased and managed. And I mean, there's a lot of excitement around this. I think just in the sense that, it's another attempt at the same thing. I've seen a lot of attempts at the same thing. Unfortunately, most of them haven't worked out, but eventually one will. So this is kind of exciting. What I think is more hilarious about this article is that EOS and Ronin were grouped in as like leading the charge for, these smaller ecosystem DeFi surges. Like EOS is like, it is the butt end of many of my jokes. Like it's the example I use of something that started a long time ago and it still exists only because people refuse to, like there's maxis that just hold EOS and that's it. There's no reason that it has the market cap it does, that it has the value that like at all in any way, to me is very hard to understand. Could it do something in the future? Sure. Of course, anybody has the potential to build something meaningful. But yeah, I think definitely if you're interested in kind of real estate on chain, I'm not suggesting that this is a solid investment nor a protocol that you should use, but definitely something to look at and pay attention to, I think.
One of the things that Avalanche does that I think is pretty cool is it allows you to split your mortgage between several people. So if you are trying to purchase a multi-unit home, a number of you could go in on that. So there are some sort of like cooperative elements to that. There's also just the idea that maybe you can't afford a whole home and you can get some sort of backing from a digital community. I think there are some pretty cool ideas that are behind Avalanche. I just need to see it work.
What I like about Avalanche's concept is it kind of reminds me of timeshares in a sense, but it removes potentially some of the biggest issues with timeshares. And that is the lack of transparency, obviously. The lack of understanding of what the costs actually are, where they come from, where they're going. You just get your timeshare maintenance fees every year and you just pay them. You have no, the other problem with timeshares is getting out. And so what's really interesting about this is it creates liquidity behind these assets that you can, deal with your share of the property independently, I believe, of all of your other co-owners. You can just sell that relative share to someone on the market. If this works, it's exciting. There's a few challenges that I can see, and I'm sure they've thought these through. But the first one is just how to mark the value of these properties to market on any regular cadence to get a pricing model. It's going to be very difficult to value this stuff. And if you have to get a valuation every time someone maybe is interested in buying it, which might be the case, we have to figure out how quick that can happen, what the cost is, and how much trust we can put in that, because that's still a single point of failure. Then now you're trusting some third party that you've never met to tell you whether it's worth it or not, or what it's worth. So that'll be interesting. I'm sure they've thought through that. I didn't see anything about that in the article, though.
Well, this article was more about their listing on Uniswap. So if you want to know more about them, I'm sure they have information.
I mean, a token listing on Uniswap is hardly newsworthy. This is just somewhat interesting because they chose to go straight to a DEX as opposed to trying to do a centralized exchange or something,
Cool.
Which is definitely interesting. I mean, there's a lot of nuance with real estate. The legal aspects of it, getting title on chain. Is title actually on chain? Is it going to be accepted as legitimate title? I don't know. So hopefully these guys have a lot of this covered and we'll see some meaningful growth in this sector, because I think it'll change everything. Like, I mean, you could have 4 or 5 people going in on Airbnb properties, on like all this other stuff. It's not just vacation properties. It could be short-term rentals. It could be multifamily buildings. It could be so many things. Like, there's so many applications of how you could want to do this. And instead of having to go to either a bank, or B, vulture capital to raise money for these real estate endeavors, you might be able to just do it with other people.
Go for it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Which is pretty
also,
cool.
If they do want to grow, listing on Uniswap was a great way to do that, because Uniswap, multi-chain, well, expanding multi-chain.
So I don't think this is the right move personally. Uniswap v3.
Ooh,
I mean, if Hayden wants to debate me on this, he can come on the pod anytime. I'd love to have Hayden on the pod. But joking aside, I understand why they're doing it, but I'm not sure if it's going to actually matter. So I kind of live in the camp. I suppose I kind of live in the camp that I just don't see a value for Uniswap v2. I struggle with Uniswap v2 now that v3 exists.
Yeah.
From a capital efficiency perspective, as a protocol, as an investor, as a trader, all of the roles that I hold, Uniswap v3 is like undeniably better. And so what they're doing right now, the reason that they're doing this is they're actually going to go to all the ecosystems that they deployed v3, which was a bunch. They did that right before the April 1st MIT license of Uniswap v3. They deployed a whole bunch of them so that we didn't get a bunch of copycats. Because, I mean, open source is great, but they had a year where it wasn't open source and then it became open source again. And everybody forks Uniswap. So every ecosystem, it's funny that we actually use v2, v3 as a canonical phrase in every ecosystem. Everybody knows what that means. Uniswap v2, Uniswap v3. There's so many forks. It's one of the easiest things to just fork, throw a front end on, a simple front end, and go to market. And so, unfortunately, and this is the reason that they're suggesting they're doing this, is there's a lot of scammy, improperly managed rugs, exploits, all this other crap with some of these forks, unauthorized forks. Not that they need to be authorized, but some of these unknown, anonymous, whatever forks. And so what Uniswap is saying, hey, in all the ecosystems where we have a v3, we're going to throw up a v2. If you're going to use a Uniswap v2, you better use Uniswap. It's kind of their theory. They want to try to bring more of the volume back to the Uniswap properties. I get it. I'm just not sure if there's enough desire to use v2 that it's even going to matter. Like, I would never provide liquidity on v2 ever right now. There's no way.
I think obviously some people still are using it, and that's why the copycats are unsafe. Like, if you copycat something that nobody's using, it's not going anywhere. So I can appreciate this from a security perspective. I can appreciate it just from the idea of serving the users that we already have and ensuring that their reputation stays stellar. Maybe doesn't mean they're going to expand v2 any further. Like, it doesn't mean they're putting a lot of investment in it, right?
They've already hinted at v4. There's a v4 coming out that they're pretty deeply involved in at the moment. So
it's kind of, I don't know, think about it like video games. Some people still have a Super Nintendo and it's 2024.
There's nothing.
So like some people want to use the original thing. That's what they're comfortable using. That's what they want to do. For whatever reason, they don't want to move their assets to the new one. So we should have things be backward compatible, at least for a period of time. And if you are still experiencing scams, you haven't passed that period of time yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully this turns out to be a good thing. They had some hiccups with governance and on-chain governance and trying to get the votes out and all that stuff. But it sounds like to me that sentiment of the Uniswap token holders who vote on governance, they support this. I personally think that it's a waste of resources, but I understand why they're doing it. So definitely not a problem.
Let's talk about AI tooling.
I was going to
say,
say,
about it vaguely this week, but let's really talk about AI tooling.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier this week, I'm a little fuddy. So I'm going to go FUD myself.
You're fuddy?
Yeah. Who knew? I'm a little fuddy on this because as I said earlier in the week, I do not think that AI is remotely close to ready to be implicated with financial products. There's too much on the line. One mistake, you could lose all your money. You can't get it. Blockchain, you're not getting it back. It's not reversible. Obviously, it's immutable. So
okay, well, the way that this is being framed by Axon Labs is that you can make informed decisions by using their 3 different AI tools.
Yeah. So
you still have to make the final decision.
Of course, they're going to say that because it forces you to press a button to confirm. Of course, they're going to say that because they don't want to be an investment advisor, an unregistered investment advisor, which would be a big problem. This is exactly the problem, though, in my opinion, that I see with AI currently. So if you look at what they're trying to do, what are the 3 solutions? There was they
have Sniper, GPT, and
what was the third one?
Analytics, Axon Analytics.
So analytics, fair. You're just using that as a component of your due diligence, so to speak. But the sniping and trading insights are highly dependent upon, obviously, the inputs and the assessment of said inputs. And I mean, if I assess something in a vacuum and you assess the same thing in a vacuum, and we don't have a template that we're both following, we're obviously going to come up with different assessments. That's the problem. Because with AI, you expect the right assessment, the correct assessment, not one of multiple potential.
Not an assessment.
Yeah. And so the 3 things they're doing, not to shit on Axon Labs, because I do think there's a home for AI in blockchain. I think it's going to be incredibly powerful when it's ready. I'm just not sure we're anywhere close to ready. If Axon can prove me wrong, I will be ecstatic because it opens up a whole new world for how people can manage finances and how we can optimize portfolios and so on. I mean, in 10 years from now, we're going to do away with investment advisors as we know it now, in my opinion. It's all going to be done via artificial intelligence. But until we can have a very high degree of confidence, I won't touch it. There's no way.
You know what else you don't like to touch is decentralized social media platforms.
Not that I don't like to touch them. I mean, we've talked about this. We've talked about this a few times, but I know you like this, so go ahead.
Well, it's not so much that I like it. It's that I think it's interesting that people are still saying that they do not have their needs met by social media. And so they're trying to find a new place to reside. For a while, we thought that within crypto, that might be Mastodon. Right now, people think it might be Farcaster. One of the things that's interesting about Farcaster is that their tagline is sufficiently decentralized social media. So obviously it's not fully decentralized, which I think is good because you need to have some sort of oversight to ensure that it's a safe place to be social and there's no scams.
If you're a liberal.
But people really think that right now they are going to be the Web3 place to be. I had hoped that that might be Lens, but maybe it'll be Farcaster.
I mean, who knows? I think Lens is being built very strategically. Yeah. I'm also biased. Stani and crew are great stewards of the space, incredibly intelligent. if anybody can pull it off, I would put a bet on Stani and team. But that being said, I mean, this is kind of your age-old debate. Who's going to win? A new market entrant into a new space, or the old guard transitioning to the new space? If we always assumed that the old guard was just going to transition to the new paradigm, no one would ever innovate. So by just saying, well, Mastodon has millions of users and Facebook has billions of users, how is Farcaster going to compete? Well, they're not until they do. And eventually, like, we can't just say, well, let's just wait until Facebook decides. Like, why is Facebook the arbiter of whether social media should be on chain? Like that, I mean, anyways, so although I've struggled with how to make these sustainably monetizable, both for the users and for the businesses that would then have to use the platforms, and how the platform itself, honestly, will make money. I think the ways that this has been done or tried to be done in the past have been, well, they haven't worked. So, I mean, it will be interesting if there's some optionality on how that happens. Like maybe you can select different types of revenue or different types of fee models, or I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity for someone to do this, right? I haven't seen it yet. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually gains traction. They are focusing almost exclusively on Web3. There's a lot of crypto discussion, pages and forums and all this stuff. So if they can get in that kind of groundswell of like existing crypto native people, I think they could probably gain some meaningful traction and compete at a larger scale. So we'll see.
Yeah, let's wrap it up with the NFTs because we haven't talked about the Super Bowl enough this week. This is actually a little bit more basketball, but basically Dwight Howard had an NFT project and it didn't go well. So there are people coming out now and saying, hey, you need to be really cautious of NFTs and know what you're actually investing in. It's not an easy moneymaker like it once was or like we thought it was going to be. Also, look, the SEC has cracked down on NFTs. So I just think this is interesting. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of money who want to do something to make more money, and they're maybe just making arbitrary decisions, and that makes news.
Yeah. So, I mean, the prime example of this, of people just seeing a cash opportunity and taking advantage is Trump. Love him or hate him, the Trump NFTs were ridiculous. They were ridiculous, in my opinion. I refused to buy one. And I actually don't mind Trump as a person or a president, but I don't give a shit about some stupid him like a Superman.
Yeah, totally.
Like, come on.
No, it's more like a fundraising, so we could avoid a super PAC. But like
that was exactly it, because no one would contribute to a super PAC without losing, being canceled publicly. So, totally. But that being said, there's been a lot of news about NFT products coming from influencers, celebrities, pro athletes. I mean, we had Kardashians, the Paul brothers. We've had a lot of fairly notable individuals. I think LeBron James had a flopped situation. There's a few that they thought there's claims now that some of these athletes rugged their NFT projects or slow rugged, all this other nonsense. And I think, anytime, nothing is free ever. And so anytime that you think it's a free cash grab, I mean, there's other risks involved, and that's reputation risks and the fact that you don't understand the technology, Dwight Howard, nor do you understand the economics around it. So you have to hope that, your agent gets it, which most agents probably don't. Anyways, all of that to say, there's been a lot of problems with kind of celebrity NFTs. There's been some good ones. Don't get me wrong. There's been a few that have gone fairly well.
Well, I was thinking of the Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher one. It sold really well, but then they had an SEC infraction, I think.
There's just a ton. Like there's a ton of these NFTs that have been sold. What's his name? Johnny Depp. I own all of the Johnny Depp NFTs. Just because I was
just you. No one else bought them.
No. Like I own one of each of the releases. I don't own all of them. I'm not that obsessed, but his initials are JD, which is kind of cool. But anyways, so like I've gotten on board with some of it, and some of it has worked out really well. Like the Johnny Depp stuff is really cool, and it's really innovative. Like it's very different than most normal, typical PFP generative NFTs. But yeah, I think just in general, I don't think this cycle is going to see quite the same boom of like these random JPEG projects. I think as investors, we realized that as a space. We realized that last cycle, a lot of these things, when the bubble popped, it popped fast and there was almost no liquidity. And so now I think, well, I don't know. I'll probably be wrong here, but now I would expect that people are going to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more diligent in what types of utility and value these projects should have. What is Dwight Howard going to do for this project? Does it matter? Is it just his likeness? Am I paying for a JPEG, $500 for a JPEG of his likeness? Because that's ridiculous. Why would I care about that? What is it going to get me? How does he plan to expand the platform and the community in years going forward, et cetera, et cetera? So I think we can probably stop talking about sports NFTs there.
That's it. That's your Degen news, my friend.
I thought we had one more, but damn.
No, that's it. That was the end.
We ended on time too. Quick reminder, Bitcoin bull market might be upon us, but we're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and soon to be Apple Podcasts, only so that we can concentrate on growing our presence on those venues. So please like, share, subscribe, help us get the word out. Super important. And today, Kiara, I say to you, go FUD yourself.
Yourself.
Later.